Second. Welcome, everybody. We are here. We started this as our What If virtual conference, and now we're on our third month of doing this particular get-together, and we start this with an amazing health professional. My name is Lauren Lahav. I'm with the JuicePlusCompany and a PMD Plus, with what that basically means is it's many people around the world. We're pulling together to really inspire healthy living and to give people more choices and more options in their life. And the beautiful thing about this company, more than anything, are the people that we meet along the way, and especially people that become amazing friends in our life. And it's an honor and privilege to introduce our speaker today. I might read about her bio specifically, but I want you to know just who she is and what she stands for. She truly is a woman on a mission, and she is fiercely, and I mean fiercely, committed to being that trusted guide for people along with their health journey, and as well as just being able to do what they want to do whenever they want to do it. She has been 30 years in the health profession. She has her BS from Cornell, and she also has her PhD from Stanford. She is, if you're looking for a proven professional who could guide you to better health with practical and doable solutions that are easy and sustainable. I like to say things that she just doesn't talk about things that are obtainable, but she talks about things that are sustainable, and not just for you, but your whole family. And I'm sure she's going to go into more details as well. Her research has been published in many magazines and journals in science about with the National Academy of Sciences and the Journal of Cell Biology. Audiences in 4 continents have enjoyed her award-winning books, audios, and lectures. She also has written an awesome book, which is Do You Have the Guts to Be Beautiful? And it was featured in Women's Health magazine and is going to be out to millions of readers right now. I think it's already, I know it's already out. I've read the book. I love the book as well. She's an extraordinary mom. I just love watching her with her daughters when when her daughters were committed to something, she did whatever it took, and she was able to do whatever she needed to be able to support her daughters on her journey. She's also married to Doug Barlow, and they just have a beautiful relationship. I know that she has taken the time out because she is actually, I'm sure she'll share with you on just taking her everything to the next level. But she's going to talk with us today about making peace with your microbiome. So if you could please give a huge welcome, a virtual welcome, give her some love in the chat, if you would. Welcome, Dr. Mitra.
Thanks so much, Lauren. It's really a pleasure for me to be here. And I wanted to, even though I'm a little backlit, I wanted to show you guys where I am, which is at Hippocrates Institute. And like Lauren said, I decided to take a little time out to rejuvenate myself, because I am fiercely committed to all of y'all getting healthy, including my family and also my extended family, and then anybody who's interested in taking their health to the next level. I want to be there for them. So, and you can hear me okay with the waterfalls and everything in the back? Everything's good?
Yeah, we can hear you good. It's beautiful.
Okay, awesome. So today's topic is to make peace with your microbiome, because we really have a new biology in town. And I'm going to talk about how the Juice Plus products relate to helping you build a really good environment in your gut, which is where health begins. And this is a quote from Hippocrates, that all diseases begin in the gut. And here I am at Hippocrates Institute to kind of bring you the latest and greatest of what he started to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. So what are your current concerns today? If you're young, chances are your concerns are to look good, feel good, and just maybe have healthy babies if you're in that age group. And if you're older, chances are you just don't want to drop dead of a sudden heart attack. You don't care for diabetes, and you don't want to die of cancer, right? Does that about sum it up, right? There's other things, but let's just keep it really simple. And you don't want to gain weight every year either, right? That's something that is happening, especially with COVID and a lot of the stress that people are going through. So this is my family. I've got 3 daughters, and there's my husband, and here we are in Hawaii. And I want to tell you that Juice Plus was my prenatal, and my kids have never had to go to the pediatrician regularly or anything like that. And it's just been awesome to be able to watch them grow up to be healthy, happy, thriving young adults in the world. So as I told you, there's a new biology in town. And this started right around, actually it started back in 2007 when we figured out how to sequence DNA a lot faster than we used to be able to. And from doing that, we changed the face of biology. And I love this picture on the left. This is a picture of your gut. That gray picture is your gut mucosa, and in it are all the little bacteria. And I like to say, you know what they're doing? They're just eating, pooping, and having sex. And their waste products are our nutrients, and them having sex is the seed of evolution. If sex is the exchange of DNA, their sex life would make you blush. It's like a Star Wars bar scene down there. They're exchanging all kinds of, DNA and everything. And so what you're eating is actually shaping the planet, believe it or not. All right, so this is the new biology. Now, here's the thing. What you have to understand is there's so many of these little, bugs inside you, a microbiota, which is like all kinds of bacteria and protozoa and all kinds of little organisms, mostly bacteria, there's actually 10 times more of them as far as cells. Only 1% of the cells in your body are your cells. The rest of it is them. And sorry, I said that wrong. 10% of your cells are biology. This technology is frustrating me. Okay, so 90% of the cells in your body are bacteria and other little organisms, mostly bacteria. And when it comes to the DNA, we only have like 20,000 genes, where there's literally 20 million microbial genes inside our body. So when you go to, how does this actually pertain to your life? Well, when you go to the doctor and they ask you your health history, like did your family have cancer or diabetes or heart disease, as if it's significant, you know what I fill out? NA for not applicable, because your DNA is only 0.001% of the equation most of the time. Your lifestyle, this is actually good news, because your DNA is not your destiny. You have a lot more control than you think. Okay, and the other thing is that there's different kinds of bacteria in different ratios throughout your body. And as you age over time, this changes. And this is also important to understand. And we are able to change it through how we eat and other lifestyle factors, but mostly how we eat. So I want to kind of really explain to you your gut, because it's a really important organ for you to understand. It's actually an essential organ in my mind. We used to think that the heart and the brain were like essential organs, lungs. Actually, your intestines are also, in my mind, absolutely vital organs. So you have some 23 plus feet of tubing called your small intestine. And the job of the small intestine is basically to absorb nutrients, and absorb nutrients. And your small intestine, if you think of it like a tunnel, right? This is your tube here. And this white space here is where the bacteria live. So if I were to blow this up, this white space is this very colorful triangular corner where all the bacteria are living. And then these layers are, first you have your 2 mucosal layers. This is a barrier between them and us. And then the blue part is our cells. This is our, lining of our intestines, okay? So if most of your immune system actually lives in the gut. For instance, this is like different kinds of cells that have been fluorescently labeled with different dyes. And these are your epithelial cells. These are the cells that are, out there ready to absorb nutrients from the bacteria as they digest our food. And then the green cells are little, they're called intestinal dendritic cells, and they're kind of cool. They kind of periscope out. Every time you eat, they periscope out and look around and they go, uh-oh, what did Mitra eat now? You know, and then they come back down and they send information to your B cells and your T cells to warn the immune system whether you have a situation or not. So this is sort of in your army. So if I were to now look at it from a cross section, these are your epithelial cells. And the reason it's not a flat surface is because the main job, remember I said, is to absorb nutrients. So if it undulates, it increases the surface area. Not only that, even the little cells, the enteric cells, have little villi to help you absorb nutrients, and they are also maximized for surface area. Now, this is the this is the barrier, the mucosal barrier. There's two mucosal layers, and this is out here. This is the center of your tube, if you will. That's where all the bacteria are doing their thing. That's fine. We don't want them touching us. You do your thing. You give us nutrients. The nutrients flow through this inner layer, and then we absorb those nutrients. So that's important. Now, what happens is when we have a sad American diet with too many processed foods and too many animal products, then we break down this protective mucosal layer, and also we bring in parasites, and we also bring in, we start to absorb just about anything, environmental toxins, we start to absorb undigested proteins, and these stimulate your immune system and causes inflammation. So inflammation, you may have heard that most diseases, chronic diseases, have a root cause of inflammation. Well, what's the root cause of inflammation? Basically, this breakdown of the intestinal barrier. Now, this is a cross section of basically a healthy colon and an unhealthy inflamed colon. And all the layers are kind of my slide are coming into one here. But basically, if you look at the DNA signature of the microbes that live in a healthy colon, it's very different than an unhealthy colon, and this is important. So obesity is really a result of what is called dysbiosis, which is having the wrong ratios of bacteria and not enough good bacteria in your gut. So what causes this? Let's look at all the factors. This is why we're all kind of needing to take a look at this topic. Now, don't go blaming your mother, but we need to know, that these are the factors that have contributed to dysbiosis in all of us, some more than others. So if you were born through cesarean section, maybe you were formula fed instead of breastfed. I know my generation of women were really encouraged to formula feed. Also, we didn't think much about, we thought antibiotics were all great and wonderful. Turns out they're not so wonderful because they wipe out all this microbiota. And when we're looking for diversity, it wipes them out. Have you eaten gluten? Gluten is a protein found in wheat, rye, and barley, and we don't absorb it. And also it creates basically holes in that intestinal lining that I was telling you about. It actually creates holes between the cells themselves, so more stuff gets to our bloodstream and freaks out our immune system. If we didn't play outdoors enough, we're not getting enough exposure to mud and bacteria from the outside, kind of constantly challenging our immune system to learn the bacteria in our environment, and we start to wash our hands way too much. And actually what you're doing is you're washing off, most of the time you're washing off the protective bacteria on your hands. You're eating too many sugary foods and artificial sweeteners, which are actually going to basically feed the wrong microbes. And if you've eaten meat, fish, poultry, and cheese, dairy foods regularly, this is also going to contribute to chronic inflammation. So when people try to lose weight, they often fail. Why is that? Well, it's because we actually have two brains. If you were to weigh your brain versus the weight of the bacteria in your gut, there's more of them than us in the brain in our skull. And not only that, most of the neurotransmitters and hormones that regulate our behavior and our mood are made by these bacteria, and I'll talk about that more in a second. So let's look at it this way. Let's say you had a flourishing gut ecosystem with all the good bacteria that you need to be a healthy, happy person. Then let's say one of those lifestyle factors, especially antibiotics, comes into play, and it devastates out this ecosystem. Then if I don't do anything proactive, then what happens is that you're going to have weeds come in. So what can you do? Well, I know a lot of people are taking helpful bacteria, which is probiotics. That's helpful. There's a lot of, it's hard to find necessarily good ones out there on the market, but it has limitations. You can also replace bacteria. I don't want to get into that, but that's a whole other topic. And then what I like to focus on is feed your helpful bacteria, because it's not like the helpful bacteria aren't there. It's, for the most part, most of the good bacteria are actually still in your body. In most cases, you know, there are some situations where that may not be true, but for the most part, and we're also, remember, we're breathing in bacteria from the environment, so we always have constant exposure to all kinds of different bacteria. If we can feed the good guys, like who are you feeding for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is the question. If we can feed the good guys, you can make an impact in as little as one day, and I will talk more about that. So I want to talk a little bit about my history. I was born in Kolkata, India, and you know, especially back then, you might have considered that a third world country. But you know what? My body was in homeostasis, and my microbiome was in symbiosis with my body, because I was eating mostly a plant-based diet. That has changed today in Kolkata. There's no other place. There's most places on the planet, most cities, most urban cities have changed, sadly, towards the sad American diet. And even when I moved to this country, I did fine, because my mom cooked for us at home, and I didn't eat out much at restaurants. And it wasn't until I went to college and that all-you-can-eat buffet at Cornell, and then by the time I was at Stanford, I was really quite a mess. And I didn't realize it. I was young and I thought I was fine, you know, and sometimes these things really catch up to us in our 50s. But even in my mid-20s, I started to have health issues, which I kind of wrote off. Like, you know, you just get used to things kind of not working just right. Well, in an attempt to try to learn more, back in '94, I remember reading this magazine article called Better Than Vitamins. The word phytochemicals was introduced to us in the early 90s. It's phyto meaning plant chemicals. Vitamins were first discovered using kind of old technology. We now have much more sophisticated technology, and we're realizing, wow, there's much more than just a few vitamins. There's all these other nutrients that come in plants that we need. So I started a juicing regimen 26 years ago. And it was at that time somebody brought me a brochure on Juice Plus comparing juicing to the original 2 fruit and veggie blends. And I realized I would have to drink many, many glasses of juice to get the same nutrients that are found in these capsules without getting the salt and sugar. So I wasn't going to get the sugar in Juice Plus, which I was going to get from juicing, and I was going to get much more nutrition from Juice Plus. So I decided, and actually because I was, when I first saw it, actually my first thought was I should have thought of this, because I was juicing in the kitchen and I was using a similar technology they used to make Juice Plus in the laboratory to dehydrate cells. So I immediately got that it was possible. And I did my due diligence, and I realized they had done a good job. So I started taking it. Today we have 3 fruit, veggie, and berry blends. Now I want to tell you something that most people don't realize, that you know, one of the reasons, let's say, you don't get any sugar in the fruit blend, for instance, is because we throw in the entire orange. You don't eat the skin of the mango or the skin of the orange, or you know, we don't always eat the entire fruit or vegetable. In Juice Plus, they throw in everything. We don't eat the core of the pineapple. Well, there's beautiful enzymes that help you with reduce inflammation, like bromelain, in the core of that pineapple. So they're throwing in the whole thing. So you are getting a wide variety of nutrition. It's really important for you to understand that like, for instance, the isoflavonoids that are in the orange are mostly on the skin. So we eat the juicy, sugary inside when we really should be like monkeys and eating the whole peel and everything. Monkeys eat, when you give them a banana, they'll eat the whole thing. And we've lost that. As humans, we've become picky eaters. And so therefore, we're throwing away all the different varieties, and mostly we're throwing away the variety of fibers that are available in the skin and all these other parts of the vegetable. And the variety of fibers leads to a variety of bacteria that can help us stay healthy. And that's an important concept to really understand. So the fruits and vegetables that go into Juice Plus are also vine ripened. By the time we get something in the grocery store, it is not vine ripened because it would rot by the time it sat in the grocery store. So it hasn't achieved its peak potential of nutrients on the vine, whereas the fruits and vegetables that go into Juice Plus are vine ripened. They're tested for purity, not only for herbicides and pesticides, but pretty much every toxin known to man. They're tested for nutrient content. They're tested also to see if it gets into your blood, and it's been thoroughly researched on all systems of the body. And I love the cost savings. People say, oh, I don't know if I can afford Juice Plus. I say, can you really afford not to take Juice Plus? If you're trying to get just 6 fruit and veg a day, even in a juice, I mean, if you're going to either buy it and juice it yourself, that's going to cost you a lot of time and money, or go to a juice bar, you're still going to get, basically something that you don't know the quality of the produce that goes into that juice. You don't know the consistency, and you're certainly going to pay a lot more. So one of the things I did not expect out of taking Juice Plus, because at the time I started taking it, I had chronic inflammation in my neck. And I basically didn't realize that the chronic inflammation in my neck was not healing because of the chronic inflammation in my gut. I didn't make that connection between gut health and my neck not healing, because systemic inflammation means just that, systemic. It's throughout your body. So how your gut health affects the pain you're experiencing in different parts of the body. So the best way to heal pain is to heal your gut. Okay, so I didn't realize that Juice Plus would help me get rid of, like, I was buying ibuprofen in bulk, and I was spending hundreds of dollars on physical therapy. That stopped completely once I got on Juice Plus. Now, that was my experience. Today, we actually have all these 4 different studies showing, yes, we see the markers of systemic inflammation move in the right direction when you take Juice Plus. Juice Plus is also wonderful for the skin. Here's a result for you from my friend Lindsay Hale. She was a personal trainer and she had some skin issues, and she got on Juice Plus when she heard that it might help her skin. And it certainly helped her skin. And we also have research showing, yes, it does help your skin with things like microcirculation. It's really next to impossible, by the way, to improve microcirculation. The only thing I know of is like these different kinds of bioenergy mats that cost thousands, if not over $10,000. Who wants to do that? And plus, you got to spend the time lying on it. Whereas if you just take Juice Plus, especially with the Vineyard blend, you're going to improve your microcirculation by 39%. Let me explain microcirculation to you. The capillaries that come very close to the surface of the skin are so teeny that only one little cell can move through at a time. To affect that is a very hard thing to do. I always know when somebody's taking their Juice Plus if they have that Juice Plus glow. What is that Juice Plus glow? For one, it's that microcirculation. There's other results as well, such as improved skin hydration, thickness, and density. But one of the things I want to tell you about Lindsay's story is that she was also not just trying to improve her skin, she was trying to get pregnant. And dysbiosis can also cause infertility. If you have systemic inflammation in your gut, your body's going to say, can't make babies now. I'm too busy fighting this parasite war that is in your gut and your leaky gut. There's just too much going on down here. I don't have the energy to make a baby, so no can do. Cannot help you get pregnant. Well, when Lindsay got on Juice Plus, and she was about to spend tens of thousands of dollars looking into, all kinds of fertility technologies. Well, guess what? Today she's the mother of 3 very happy, healthy Juice Plus babies. So she's thrilled that she didn't have to spend that money. She just had to get on some Juice Plus. So I tell people, listen, even if you're just even thinking about having babies, man and woman, both the guys and the gals, please give your unborn baby the gift of taking Juice Plus. It's important to understand how important this is for your future generations. And just like we have 2 brains, remember when we're trying to feed our kids, we're moving up now, you know, your microbiome throughout the years. When children are trying to be picky, just like, you know, if you listen to this talk, you might say, okay, I'm going to have a salad for lunch. But your second brain, your enteric brain is going to talk to you and say, you know what? I'd rather that you eat this instead. And you're going to come up with all kinds of justifications because your gut is producing most of the neurotransmitters that are affecting your behavior and your thought and also the hormones. So you're going to say, I don't know if that Dr. Mitra, that Indian chick that was on that Zoom call, really knows what she's talking about. I really think that you need to go for that cheeseburger or that donut or whatever your weaknesses are, or, you know, that glass of wine or whatever your weaknesses are, because they want more of the food that's feeding them. And your first brain has a real challenge to fight against that second brain. And your children have that same challenge. Don't forget that. So you have to understand that you can't just force broccoli down their throat. So what can you do? Well, I love, you know, for years we had something called the Juice Plus Children's Health Study, and we studied hundreds of thousands of families around the world. And we found that when we gave them Juice Plus, there were many benefits, but one of the ones some of the results that really pertain to the microbiota in my mind is that they started craving more fruits and vegetables naturally, and they started craving less fast foods and soft drinks naturally. Why is that? It's because we were changing their microbiota, is my thesis. And we are now doing a microbiome study where I think we're going to see that. Today, that is called the Healthy Start for Families. And I love that when an adult gets on Juice Plus, they can sponsor a child to get it for up to 4 years between the ages of 4 and 18, also full-time college students. And right now in today's world, I think it's absolutely necessary for us to fortify our immune system by helping our gut microbiota become more healthy. All right, let's move on. What happens as we get older? Well, I love polyphenols. Remember that word, polyphenols. Polyphenols pretty much slow down the aging process. They are the magic bullet to slowing down the aging process. They reduce inflammation. They reduce hypertension, risk of cardiovascular, metabolic, and neurodegenerative diseases and cancer. What else do we want, right? I mean, polyphenols are amazing. Well, there's a woman in Italy who studies polyphenol research, and she decided to take Juice Plus and see if she could see an increase in polyphenols. Now, what they did with these subjects is they starved them for, they didn't eat all night. And then they gave them Juice Plus capsules. And then within 2 hours, she saw a rise in 3 different polyphenols right away. And then after a while, of course, those started to decline. But here's something interesting. Remember, these guys also, after taking Juice Plus, they still didn't eat for another 10 hours. So this is all on an empty stomach with just Juice Plus in their body. After 2 hours, what she saw was something fascinating, is different kinds of polyphenols made by the microbiota. That means Juice Plus is a prebiotic. It's feeding our microbiota. Our microbiota is eating up these polyphenols and making different polyphenols that are now showing up in the blood. That is absolutely fascinating. And we're just learning. So I love the research behind Juice Plus because it's like new frontiers in terms of health and understanding the power of plant nutrition in health. All right, let's talk about bone density. Many people have been told to take calcium supplements, I'm sure. How many of you have been told to take calcium supplements for bone density? Don't do it, okay? Because that calcium is going to end up in the wrong place. Your bones don't absorb calcium just because you took a calcium supplement. In fact, it could actually end up in the wrong place. what happens, how do you get calcium? You get it from, first of all, exercising, strength training exercises, because that's going to signal the push and pull of like ligaments against bone signals the bones to take up calcium from the blood. And secondly, you need leafy greens in your diet. I eat a lot of leafy greens that my husband so lovingly grows in our tower gardens, and I take my Juice Plus, and that is my formula, and it's always been my formula for bone density. So when I turned 50, I decided to check everything in my body. I did a test on everything. One of them was a DEXA scan. And when I remember going to do the DEXA scan, and the technician was telling me, he's giving me the regular lecture, like, are you taking your calcium? Are you drinking dairy? Which is such a no-no. Don't drink dairy. That dairy is the worst animal protein, an animal source of food that you can possibly eat. And I'll get into that in a second. So he's giving me his lecture, and I'm like, okay, great. Let's just wait to see my results, right? And for a hot second, he made me nervous because he was just going on and on and on the whole time. Well, he sends me now this is a grown man, sends me my results. Grown man writing smiley faces all over my results and saying, wow, bone density of a 25-year-old girl, impressive, wow, 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 with smiley faces. So this is really interesting to understand. Now you may say, well, I've been taking Juice Plus for 26 years. What if I start tomorrow? Or you're younger than I am. Okay, let's look at another story. This is a story from one of my representatives. She started giving her grandmother Juice Plus. 8 months ago, I started my grandma, who's 84 years old, on Juice Plus capsule shakes. She's on prednisone and has to have bone density scans, as it can have an adverse effect. Her GP was absolutely astonished when this year her density had not decreased, but increased by 11%. He had never seen this before in his career, and definitely not in a patient in their 80s. The power of plants. Okay, what else should we be feeding our microbiome? So, I told you we have to feed our microbiome, right? That's the important thing. Now, this is a study by Eric Alm, who's very well known in the microbiota research. Now, imagine, scientists are absolutely crazy. Imagine taking poop samples for an entire year and testing hundreds, I think over 300 different lifestyle factors to see what changes your microbiota. Okay, so this is just some of the data I'm just throwing at you. Well, what he realized is that if you get 10 grams more fiber today, tomorrow you'll have 11% more of diversity in your microbiota. That is amazing. There's no medicine that's going to create this kind of result, because good health has to do with diversity of microbiota. So we did the Human Genome Project, and we found, oh my gosh, we only have 20,000 genes. That's so embarrassing. I mean, an earthworm has 100,000 genes. So why do we have less DNA than an earthworm? Well, as I told you, we are more a superorganism. We're not just an earthworm, we're a superorganism, and we might have worms inside us as well, as parasites. Like, we can host a lot of different organisms in our body, and there's 20 million genes that are affecting our health and our body from the microbiota. So this is a really interesting study. So after the genome study, we moved on to the microbiome study. Let's just look at gut bacteria. So you take a bunch of poop samples from all the people living in the United States, and this is the cluster of bacteria. This is kind of complicated data, but basically, if it's to the left, you just don't have much microbiome diversity. Now, on the right, these are tribes that live, that nomadic tribes that still live in Africa and South America today. And their microbiome, folks, is sexy microbiome. This is what we want. We want this kind of diversity. But folks, when they're walking around, they're eating over 200 grams of fiber, and they're eating many, many different species of plants. They're eating the bark of trees. They're eating grub. When people talk about a Paleolithic diet, I'm like, talk about, oh, I do the paleo diet or whatever. I'm like, are you eating tree bark? Are you digging up roots? That's what these guys are doing. And that's why they have such healthy microbiota. So let me explain this devastation. Another way to look at it is this is us. We have a devastated forest in our gut, and the nomads have a rich, plush, like Amazon-like forest in their gut. That's like biodiversity. We want biodiversity in our gut, right? So this is us and this is them. So how do we get from where we are to there? And why is that important? It's important because the gut bacteria, when they break down the nutrients that we eat, they make byproducts that affect our behavior, our health. For instance, I'll just talk about small chain fatty acids, which come from breaking down fiber and resistant starches. The word resistant starches means starches that we cannot break down. There's starches we can break down with the amylase, like in our mouth, but there's other starches that we can't break down, but the bacteria can break them down. And they make small chain fatty acids. What did they do? Well, fiber and resistant starches fermented by bacterial produce make small chain fatty acids, which act on your hypothalamus to suppress appetite. Fiber also holds water, space, and triggers volume sensors. Now look at this. When you look at, a lot of times people are doing these protein shakes, and I'm going to get into protein in a hot second here, but I want you to know that the middle part of our Juice Plus Complete label, this is our shakes. This is all fiber and resistant starches. These are all sources of fiber and resistant starches. And so Juice Plus, both the capsules and the shakes serve as prebiotics, good food for our bacteria. And when has anybody accidentally ever eaten this variety? I mean, right here, I think you have over 44 plants. Have you ever accidentally eaten 44 different plants, right? And so we're starting to eat more like the nomads when we take Juice Plus automatically, even before we start eating other food ourselves. So, but what about the protein conversation? Okay, where do I get my protein? Well, if you look at 500 calories worth of plant-based foods and animal-based foods. So plant-based, meaning tomato, in this example, tomatoes, spinach, lima beans, peas, and potatoes are in this column, and 500 calories from beef, pork, chicken, and whole milk. I am unable to show, let's see. I think I'll see if this works for a second. Okay, what you're gonna see here is that on the left-hand side, look at the dietary fiber. There's 31 grams in the plants, and there's no fiber in the animal-based products. When it comes to protein, you have basically the same amount of protein, 33 versus 34 grams of protein. So there's no deficiency of protein in plants. Proteins are like enzymes that there are many things, but amongst them, there are enzymes that do biochemical work. There's also structural proteins. Well, plants, all living things have proteins because in order to live, you need structural proteins and you need enzymatic proteins. And plants have that. They may not be running around. And how does a horse is not eating chicken for dinner to get strong and healthy, right? So you can get all the protein that you need. I'm going to escape again. So I just want to show you that the protein's about the same, but the fat, this is 4 grams of omega fats, whereas this is 36 grams of saturated fats. There's a big difference between eating, there's all this controversy, good fats, bad fats, should we eat good fats, what are good, should we have a high fat diet or a low fat diet, blah, 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 blah. Well, we just don't want too much saturated fat because that's just literally it's like a plumbing problem. It's just going to clog up your arteries. But we do need omega fats to make our cells compliant, so that the cell membranes are very loosey-goosey and able to carry out biochemistry. And that comes from having lots of omega fats in our diet, okay? And notice all these nutrients. This is a short list of nutrients. This list, by the way, is about 40,000 long. And again, you won't get any fiber over here. What you'll get is parasites and parasite food. Also, there's something called insulin-like growth factor, which lowers levels of...
She was just talking about bone density.
Hang on a second. I don't know how somebody unmuted themselves. Hang on a second.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry. They unmuted themselves.
I know. I don't know how that happens sometimes. It gives me a chance to have a glass of water, a sip of water.
I think I got it, but let me just keep going.
Okay. So basically, insulin-like growth factor extends, low levels extend lifespan. So you don't want too much of this stuff, basically. You don't want too much IGF-1 because if you have low levels, it decreases inflammation, it reduces oxidative damage, you have more stress resistance and insulin sensitivity, and you have slow aging of the brain. Okay, so we want low levels of insulin. The main point here is to live a long, healthy life. We want to reduce our IGF-1. Well, look at this. If you eat produce, you really just are not going to make too much IGF-1. You're going to make probably just enough because there's a little bit that you need, but not too much. When you eat animal products, and especially dairy, you're going to have tons of IGF-1, okay? And that's really important to understand. So, high protein in death, 4-fold increase in cancer death, and 75 increase in overall deaths, okay? Now, there's a very interesting study that was done where they took 2 groups of people and they gave one group 100% plant-based diet, another group 100% animal-based diet, just to see what would immediately happen. And what they saw was that immediately they saw a change in their gut microbiota. And so when the microbiota changes with an animal-based diet, it is linked to increase in human enteric disease, basically diseases of the gut, increase in liver cancer, increase liver, so enteric meaning the small intestine, and then you also have increase in inflammatory bowel disease, so also in the the large intestine, and it inhibits the growth of very, very important groups of bacteria that we absolutely need in our diet. In fact, some of these bacteria are very important because they help us make tryptophan. Why is tryptophan important? And I'm going to actually create a new talk on gut microbiome and brain health. Tryptophan can be great or it can be awful. Now, if you have a good, healthy microbiota, scientists are finding that you're going to make more serotonin. Why do you want that? Well, because it's the happiness drug, right? But if you have the wrong microbiota, you're going to make this chemical that I don't even know how to pronounce. Quinarinin, I don't know. That's my best attempt now. And basically that leads to horrible toxic byproducts that scientists are now thinking have to do with diseases of the brain, such as Alzheimer's. So we need to have good microbiota to be happy, but it's not just be happy or not be happy. It's like be happy or create brain damage. You know, it's a very serious thing to not help and feed your good microbiota. So I'm here at a retreat because I used to do these retreats and I haven't been able to do one in a while. So I came here. But when I realized from doing these retreats is I was doing a great job helping people while they were at my retreat, but then they would go home and they just were not able to sustain it. And so one woman was able to sustain it, and her name is Kim. She showed up one year and she was a size 12. And the next year she was a size 2, which was amazing. And I said to her, how did you do it? And she said, well, Mitra, the way I did it is I started to, the only way I could follow your rules was to have 2 complete shakes a day and just worry about 1 meal. Well, that has become really the way I live now, you know, if I can. And so that's what I'm doing here. And from her results, I created the Shred 10 program. If you haven't heard about it, I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm going to just have you look on your own. But I just want to share, for instance, one result with you. This woman lost 40 pounds in 4 months. She's off all her meds, including high blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes medicines. No more hormonal hot flashes and insomnia. Feeling great. Love Shred 10. Continuing on with the capsules and shakes once a day. But it's not just for weight loss. I have Olympic athletes that love this program, like Ariana Kukers and Rebecca Soni. Rebecca's a 6-time. You might have seen their videos on why they love Juice Plus and why they love Shred 10. Here's Tim Emmett. He said to me, Shred 10 is the roadmap. I've been looking forward to take my climbing to the next level since I started 18 months ago. I turned 40 and climbed my hardest rock and also ice climb of my professional career. Wow. Okay, I want to get quickly onto heart disease. How many men, I'm going to really focus on men for a hot second, worry about heart disease and prostate cancer, although I will tell you, women should need to also worry about heart disease as well. And this is where omega supplementation comes in. I am so thrilled with our omega supplementation. When the company first said they were going to make omega supplements, truly I was worried. But their solution, after 5 years of really tinkering, they came up with this. It is fabulous. It's beyond fabulous. I love the cold infusion technology that really protects the oils, because all the other gel caps up there, honestly, the technology just ruins the oil. I love that we're not killing fish, because fish don't even make omegas. They get it from algae. But more importantly, this is important for the men to know. A study by scientists at the Fred Hutch Cancer Institute linked eating a lot of oily fish, and especially potent fish oil supplements, to 43% increase in prostate cancer overall, and a 71% increase in aggressive prostate cancer. Okay. Now, on the flip side, pomegranates have been shown in tissue culture to be an alternative, possible, alternative treatment, because basically, whether you look at the oil of the pomegranate or the pulp of the pomegranate, it stops metastasis in tissue culture. Well, you get if you want to, like, instead of taking fish oils, which we are proven to, increase your risk of prostate cancer, there's potential here that you're doing the right thing by getting the pulp of the pomegranate in the vineyard and the oil of the pomegranate in our omega blend. And I would just say for everyone, I mean, they study men first, but chances are it's going to have some effects on hormone-related cancers in women too. So the synergy of 4 blends is something I want to emphasize. Now, this is a study that's just been done showing whether you give people, this is baseline, like start of the study. You look at something called omega index. Remember I talked about the cells being very fluid? Well, if the cells are very fluid, they can do what they need to do. And so when you give people either 2 omega caps or 2 of each, or 4 omega caps, what you see is the cells, the control group doesn't change much, but the omega-3 index is a measure of, it's probably the #1 indicator of heart disease that we have right now. And we see the increase. And I actually recommend for adults 4 omega capsules and for children 2. And they're completely chewable, folks. People say, where am I going to get omega chewable? These are completely chewable as they are. They taste like orange popsicles for kids. Okay, so I want to just move on quickly also to the tower gardens. I love our tower gardens. You can also grow your own produce with 98% less water, less space. I don't have a green thumb, but I can run a tower garden. I mean, there are people who joke around like they kill, like, flowers that they're given to them. And yet you can plug this in, and this is kind of an easy way for all of us to have a green thumb. There's a new tower garden home. You can look up this tower garden comparison and see which one is right for you. And finally, I just want to end with, there's a lot of reasons to eat more greens. This is Lisa Edelston, posing for the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Also, most of the greenhouses on our planet today come from people eating animals, because what it takes to grow livestock as far as energy consumption, land, et cetera, and the greenhouse gas emissions. There's so many reasons to move towards a more plant-based diet. But Richard Simmons told us this a long time ago. This is actually a picture of Life magazine from back in the day. So I just hope that this will help you get your sexy back. And what I hope for you is that all of you find peace, love, and understanding with you and your microbiota.